Okay, let's start panel discussion. Today, we'd like to talk about the service and technology prospects for omnichannel commerce. I'm Kyung-Jun Lee, working for Business School of Kyunghee University. Today, we have 4 panelists, including the previous keynote speakers. Let me introduce one by one. First, Surya Redding, the CEO of Shopee. And the next, Yoonho Jeon, who is CTO of SK Planet. And third is James Chen, who is Vice Executive Director of Rakuten. And the special invited panelist is Ryan Che, co-founder of Quintess Systems. I prepared 4 topics for panel discussion. The first one is the ROI and cases for O2O retail services. And the second is the communication technologies for O2O retail. And the third one, we will talk about how will O2O services reshape the offline retail. And the last one, if we have some time, then we will talk about the proper approach for O2O retail development. Okay? Okay, let's start with the panel discussion. My first question is as follows. Will O2O service really attract more customers into offline stores and make them stay longer in the stores? Have you proved or rejected some hypotheses through your experience? So what were proved or what were rejected? If you had some proof, hypothesis, what was the usual scenario? And if you had some failed experience, then why do you think they are failed? Okay, I believe Surya has something to share. Okay, could you start?
Sure. I've already talked a lot, so I'm going to try to be brief. I think one of the things we have learned over the last 5 years is that a lot of the things that people are talking about in the press do not work with consumers. For example, if you simply have a service that shows you content and you browse it, that doesn't necessarily drive people to the store more often. That is nice, and it's also sort of interesting, but it doesn't drive the bottom line with meaningful effects. What really does work is the combination of a virtual currency that has real impact and can change behavior. Now you could say I could do the same with discounts. Yes, you could. In fact, that is also value. But A, it has to be special discounts that you can't get elsewhere. And B, probably more important, that really erodes the margin of the retailer. So if you want to keep the margin pretty much intact, and you want to at the same time change consumer behavior, then you need to work with virtual currencies. Now you could say, well, great, each retailer already has their own virtual currency because they already have a loyalty program. That is true in some cases, but unfortunately the consumer is not going to play with that because the consumer is not going to download 40 different apps for 40 different stores and use a new one every time they enter a new store. So that doesn't work either. So the case that we have seen has really worked is the idea of a cross-retailer integration across multiple places to shop, just like OK Cashback and Shopkick, and then create a virtual currency, just like those two, that actually gets distributed to consumers for taking very simple actions. The walk-in reward is much more powerful than the purchase reward from our perspective because the threshold is lower. I get people to walk into a store, they're going to say, oh, I'm just going to walk in and check it out. And then you might say, or retailers might say, that was the first response, well, but then they might walk in and not buy anything. Well, that's very true, they might. But that doesn't matter if in total, in aggregate, they're buying more. So as long as you can prove that the total group buys more, you're totally fine. It just has to be an ROI positive case. So that is one of the key findings. The other one I would like to mention here briefly is that if you think about Bluetooth Low Energy and the idea of having multiple beacons across a store, that is very enticing and super interesting, and we love it too. But again, it's not going to work if you simply make it content and you say like, oh, I'm going to show you around and show you what the interesting thing in my store is. That is sort of interesting for consumers, but it's not going to be the killer app. We just finished a trial with American Eagle Outfitters. It's a sort of like late teens, early 20s fashion retailer in the United States. We offered 50 kicks at the entrance for walking in, which is the equivalent of about, 20 cents. And then we offered 25 kicks, the equivalent of 12.5 cents, for walking into the fitting room, where you try on clothes. And the result was, with BLE, that twice the percentage of people who usually walk into the store and then go to the fitting room now went to the fitting room. So those things work, but you have to play them in a way that is cost efficient and valuable for the consumer.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, could you add some more?
Okay, some may not agree with me, but this is totally my personal opinion. But I think in Korea there are no large scale, like a practical use case where the auto implementation is in place. But still, there are some. But I think it's kind of like either primitive or not mature enough to calculate the accurate ROI. So rather than touching that point, maybe I'd better focus on other area. So if you think about the try to get an ROI from an auto service in your business, maybe you can think of two things. One is for the customer. The other thing is by the sales associate. For the customer, you may think that a lot. So you may think of giving them like a coupon, whatever they need in store. But think of the word of the relevance. Always give them the relevant information, not just coupon. What they are really interested in the store. But don't forget about the sales associate. Who's gonna boost up your sales in your store? So the thing is, auto service could be used to empower your sales associate in your store. So give them more information, let them know who are your VIP customer, who is interested in what product in your store. So that makes increase your ROI a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, James, do you have something?
Sure, yeah. I'd like to share probably the scenario for Rakuten Cafe. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a very interesting blend of online to offline because we have a lot of sellers in our marketplace where people are used to going online to buy let's say the cheesecake. But now we actually have our physical store have the ability for people to go try the cheesecake and actually, of course, order it from that shop. But one thing that's very interesting in terms of KPIs is that we found that the average sales order for Rakuten Cafe, as well as the time people spend there, is actually higher than maybe even Starbucks. And one of the reasons why is because I think we have a lot of variety of products coming in. So you're not thinking about, hey, for this buying per user might be, I don't know, like $5, so you're trying to increment that by 10%. So the model we see is actually very different. We see different variety of product that can have many, many different price points, but it's the interest that's bringing traffic back into the Rakuten Cafe because this week we have a different item compared to last week. So that's a interesting scenario. But of course, we're not sure how well that will scale. You don't have people that can make 100,000 cheesecakes everywhere, but this is to me a very interesting way how O2O is working for us.
Yeah. Celia emphasized 2 points, the virtual currency as a consumer incentive and the profit of retailers as for the business incentive. And also Ryan added the participant shop incentive for the real effectiveness of O2O services. Okay, let's move to the second topic. For O2O services, let's say we have the three communication technologies like NFC, near field communication, and the Bluetooth beacon, for example, iBeacon from Apple, and the Soundwave ultrasound, like Sharky previous beacons. Of course, Sharky is currently have BLE beacons and the Soundwave beacons. So, do you think all the three technologies will contribute to the success of O2O services? Or do you think the three technologies are sufficient or not? And what do you expect? What technology do you expect in 5 years? Okay, could you start this question?
Yes, I'm not sure about NFC. NFC was not getting popular, but Apple just, with their Apple Pay, made it popular, at least on newspapers again. We'll have to see whether it truly becomes a popular option for payment. But for other location-related technologies, I think we are still in the early stage. But I don't think they are mutually exclusive. They have different characteristics, and we also have different scenarios. What kind of distance we have to cover, or do we have to be able to distinguish the exact person just in front of point of sale system from the person behind him? Yeah, those kind of scenarios require different technologies. And the other factors we have to consider are the power consumptions, and not just the positional accuracy, but also the directionality of the technology, whether we can distinguish the person behind the door from the person inside the door, or there are other factors also we have to consider, like how many people have their Bluetooth setting enabled, and also those kind of facts that with some recent phones, it is possible to use BLE technology even when the user has turned off the Bluetooth setting. So all those kind of factors will affect what choice we have for which particular purpose.
Okay, thank you. Syria, I believe he has very intensive and hard time experience of using Soundwave device and also Bluetooth device. Could you share your experience?
Yeah, it's very interesting what you just said, because one of the problems with Bluetooth Low Energy is the fact that in the current handsets, classic Bluetooth and Bluetooth Low Energy are the same switch. And one draws a lot more battery power consumption than the other. And these two switches have software-wise not been separated yet, which they really should. Because BLE should be a default on, and classic Bluetooth may be a default off. And in that way, you can rapidly spread the distribution of Bluetooth Low Energy, because Bluetooth Low Energy, as the name implies, requires low energy. So therefore, it is one of those things that you could drastically boost by doing that. In terms of from a larger, higher perspective, you've got NFC, you've got BLE, you've got Soundwaves, you've got Fruitball, whatever is going to come, right? There will be more technologies coming. And we will find out in the next few years what those are. We probably don't even know them yet. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is the use case and how you combine it. And I know this is a standard argument at every conference. Technologies don't matter, it's the use case. Of course technologies matter. What I mean by saying so is how you bring these technologies together and maximize the benefits of each and minimize the downsides of each. That's the critical piece. Did Shopkick ever want to create a Shop Beacon hybrid that contains ultrasound and BLE? Absolutely not. Because we're not in the business of making hardware. We had to, because there was no other choice for us to deliver on the premise we wanted to give to consumers. And so if there is a simpler technology that does all of it, wonderful, we'll take it. But there isn't right now. There's no technology that allows you to know somebody's really crossing the threshold of a store, and a technology that wakes up an app at the same time, accurately. So we had to create a hybrid. NFC is really good for payments because it is a super close technology. You literally have to be an inch away from the device. So it's for very short distances. And it's very good for security. So that's probably why Apple jumped on it, to the surprise of almost everyone in the room probably, that they finally actually did accept NFC. But again, I think they chose it because there was nothing else out there that could do everything in one. Although they like BLE at Apple, as proven by iBeacon, they still had to do it with NFC. So we're all waiting basically for the thing that can combine all of it. Until then, we'll have to do exactly the same as we did on the carrier side. There's CDMA, there's LTE, there's GSM. All of this needed to be brought into one device and combined into one handset. And we will have to do the same with the location technologies. We call it a Shopkick, the location burger, because it's like a sandwich of multiple pieces. On the very high level, you have GPS, and then you have cell phone ID numbers, and you have Wi-Fi patterns, and then one level below that you've got presence technology, which is ultrasound and BLE. One level below that you've got NFC and touch. In other words, it goes from vicinity to presence to touch, and all three layers of that software of that location burger need to be covered.
Okay, Ryan, could you answer more?
Okay. I agree 100% with you guys, and the thing is, the battery power and the privacy issue is always the question I was asked by the customer, and the battery power it depends on how accurately you want to spot the customer position, how many interaction do you want to capture from the device. So actually, when I built up the solution for beacon management, it's not that low energy. So still, it is. We are in the middle of studying how can we reduce down the battery power, the consumption, and also regarding NFC. I also agree that the NFC is still surviving, because it has been in the market for a long time, and it has a strong presence and its own advantage in interoperability and also security part. So maybe I believe that NFC will be more effective solution in the authentication and the payment area. And the beacon, it could be, right now it is spread. So it will be widely spread in about 2 or 3 years, hopefully. But beacon has its own limitation. So if those problems cannot be solved at the first place, the speed of the spread will be hindered. So also, if I narrow down our discussion to the Korea situation, maybe in Korea we have the legislation and the policy should be established before not before, but with the technology advance. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one more about power consumption? Yeah, power consumption is the real problem we are facing now. And it is interesting that we don't have to choose among those different technologies, but we can use multiple of them to help the other more power-consuming technology to save power. For example, Bluetooth can be turned on and off by app, not by users, and we can turn it on inside some geofenced area that relies on, for example, cell tower which does not use much power. And the more accurate technologies like ultrasound can also be turned on in the background when we are in a particular store. So by using and combining those different technologies, we can we can save energy while getting more accurate positioning.
Okay, thank you. It was interesting to hear that the Syria, says the three technologies are not competing but complementing each other. And Syria said he had to develop both technologies for satisfying the retailers' demand. I think it is very important insight. Okay, let's move to the third question. The third topic is more general. People say offline retail is going to die. Will auto services can save the offline retail from drowning? Or we can say, how do you think auto services will reshape the offline retail? James, could you start the discussion?
Sure. So I think the biggest there will always be offline retail and there's always going to be online. But I think the big shift in the future is really the category of offline or physical retail store is going to change. Like I mentioned about the 3D printing scenario, there's going to be many products that's just going to disappear off the purchasing options anywhere anymore because you're going to be able to make it at home. So similar to the many retail stores, I'm not sure about Korea, but at least in the US, there are many retail stores that's been sort of shut down or gone bankrupt because the category of product they're selling is easily been taken over by online. So similarly, there are many categories online. I think when we have a good physical way to display and sell, the purchasing of it online might also disappear. So maybe, for example, the appliances, the washing machine, like those are very big things that you have to see it working. You have to know how to use it before committing. So of course, those are options online right now. But if the price is also attractive on site where you can test it and you buy and it goes home with you. So I think categories of products will be the new definition of what's online versus what's offline, if it's not blurred.
Okay, Ryan?
Okay. I was impressed by his word. The future online would be is the offline, right? So 100% agree with that. So actually, the funny thing is, more than half of the showroomers are like they would like to go to the store and buy something in the store. And if the vice versa is also working, so maybe 60 or 70% of the web roomers could become a showroomer. So it is not decided which one is the more dominant, but still, my opinion is the auto technology should be utilized where the offline retailer has strength. For example, why the people go to the offline store? Okay, the first thing is they want to spend extra money for their delivery. They don't want to wait for the delivery for a long time. And the other thing is they want to feel like a better treatment from the store, the actual face-to-face. And also they want to feel comfortable with the return, the item return, right? So if you use the auto technology in that area, you will be very beneficial. So which means, as I told you before, let your data flow from online to the offline, and even finally in the hands of your sales associate. Then make your customers feel comfortable with the return, showing them displaying them where you can return your goods with the hassle-free, and also you can also still provide them more valuable information like real-time review on the items in your store in front of the item. So in that way, it may help them to decide purchase in the store, not the online.
Thank you. Every panel discussion is very boring, so some people are sleeping. Well, let me ask some interesting question to Syria. Syria, you sold your company to SK Planet, so you I think you have a lot of money. So, so now you can play a role as an investor. So will you invest some offline retailers if you have money, or if you, will you invest your money only onto online company, or what will you invest with your money if you can? That's my.
Okay, nobody has ever told me I had a lot of money. So first of all, I come from Silicon Valley, where I belong to the poorest people, compared to a lot of other people like Reid Hoffman, who owns 20% of LinkedIn. So to answer your question, yes, I will make investments. Yes, I will invest a lot in the intersection of digital and physical, because I think that's really interesting. And why is it interesting? I would like to just ask the audience a question. Who of you has kids? Raise your arm, please, if you have kids. Okay. On the weekend, you can either go hiking in the woods, or you can go shopping. Which of the two are you going to do? Hiking is healthier and cheaper. Shopping is less healthy and costlier. And yet 90% of you will probably not go hiking, you will go shopping. So in other words, the reason why online retailers are here to stay and why offline retailers are also here to stay, but maybe not the current ones, maybe new ones, is simply for the simple reason that people would like to get out of the house on the weekend, and they need to have a place to go. And that's why I said earlier that ultimately stores need to be like a mini vacation. They need to feel like you're going out to recuperate. And it can't be that you're going into a store, you're walking around the store, and with a little basket, a cart, and you're throwing items from a shelf into a basket, and then you walk up to the register and queue up in the line in order to be allowed to pay. That sounds not like a great experience to me. So in the future, people are going to want to go shopping to feel better, not because they need something or because they want something, they simply want to feel better. And that's why I believe shopping in the physical world will not go away, for that very simple reason. And so now, every retailer needs to ask themselves the question, is my store like a mini vacation? And I'm afraid a lot of stores will have to answer no if they're honest to themselves. That means they need to drastically change, and the two things they need to do is rearrange their store, make it beautiful, make it inspiring, make it a place you walk into and feel better. And secondly, create a digital overlay on top of the physical world. And that's the job that we're going to do at SK Planet, is basically create that digital overlay and make it so awesome that consumers are simply going to love it and have a better experience in the physical world. And all the things you love from Amazon, like people who like this product also like that product, recommendations, personalization, all of that is coming to the physical world. And I find it very strange that all of this is not available in the physical world. Why is it missing? Because simply we haven't built it yet. That's what we're doing. And we need to do that. I'm sure we're not the only company that's going to build that. We are sort of extremely passionate about it. And you have been doing this for many years. Shopkick has done it for a few years as well. And I'm sure a lot of other companies are feeling very passionate. The Rakuten Cafe is a very interesting example. And so we're going to see more of that. But there is a very fundamental question each retailer needs to ask themselves. Am I ready for this for the future? Am I a store that people really want to go to in the future when they don't have to go because they need something? That's a very hard question to answer. And I'm afraid most retailers will have to answer no to that question today. And they need to change dramatically. A few years ago, we had a session at one of the largest retailers in America where Shopkick was invited to talk to the 200 top executives of the company. And it was about the future of shopping. And I was impressed how much they had understood the problem. And yet they were very scared, they didn't know what to do about it. And that's where we need to be creative and find the solution, because the consumers are voting with their feet very easily. They're already doing it.
Let's give a big applause to Syria.
What about you? Go shopping or go hiking?
Well, I would say 80% of the cases I go shopping. I go a little bit of hiking because I have a little boy who's 2 years old, and he actually doesn't like to hang out at stores all day long. But if I didn't have that, I would probably go shopping 90% of the time.
Maybe your wife has a different opinion.
What was that?
Maybe your wife has a different opinion.
That's right.
Okay, from the serious thing, we feel that the auto service is just starting point. We are in very early stage of the new future of commerce. Okay.
So I have a comment on the digital overlay over a physical store. So Rakuten has a technology. Actually, it doesn't really have to do with commerce, but I feel it's a similar concept about how you merge the online world with offline world. So there's something called a hitoke. Essentially, for like a conference like this, through different booths, we have the ability to, I think actually using Soundwave as well, detect the popularity of different booths around the conferences. So on a real-time monitor, you can actually see fake people or digital people walking around to the different booths, and you can see where people are lining up between the most popular ones. And you can see it by gender, whether male or female, by age. So that's sort of another interesting blend where I think the concept of this digital overlay into the physical world will become more prevalent going in the future. So that's something that's going to affect everywhere, including e-commerce.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, now we have the last topic. I hope to talk about the approach for omnichannel retailers. So, for example, the incumbent retailers should develop their own systems or just adopt the auto services as a service. Or how the retailers deal with privacy. And related to the privacy issue, is the customized services is only the option? Should we rethink about the personalized services, its feasibility and its desirability? So, since this is the last question, so let's talk more freely, okay? Okay, could you start?
Okay, so I'd like to mention about two things, the custom build and also the personalization. First, custom build. I believe it's a little bit depends on the size of company and also resource availability in the company. So the package solution, like a platform service, would be more adaptable for the small and medium-sized company, which don't have enough resources to run the service and also post the content and manage the device, something like that. But the big company like a Korean conglomerate, they prefer to the customized content and service in their own app and also in their own platform. So because I have been involved in a lot of like implementation service and also implementation requests from the customer, so that's my opinion. And second thing is personalization. Personalization, everybody says that is a key to the auto service and key to the like location-based marketing, whatever. But it is not a new concept or paradigm, right? The personalization we have been hearing all the time since everybody says customer is important and the contents delivered to the customer should be personalized. But you have to think about two things. First one is to what extent that personalization would be rewarded. So too much personalization might offend your customer. So they might feel risky. Too much customization, too much personalization, which is based on their customer profile. So you have to think about it. To what extent you will personalize your service. The second thing is personalization by which attribute of your customer. Traditionally, customer profile will be enough. But right now we have a new data like a time, place, occasion, sales context. So those kind of things could be used, could be utilized to personalize the service. When to enter your store, in which product they are standing by. So which which sales associate will be available. Those kind of things should decide the personalized level.
James?
Yeah, so I think it's very tough because, like you said, like the different level, the size of the company matters, and also I think the physical layout or the reach of your customer is also very important too. So of course, everybody, especially a large company, we want to have an understanding of our customers globally, no matter what country they're in, no matter what channel they come from to buy something online or maybe book a travel service. And we, of course, we own a lot of tracking company as well. So what we found out is that, again, because the scenario is advancing so much, that it's hard to use a standardized solution to be able to capture all that. So what ended up happening is that you try to optimize your resources, meaning your investment, trying to leverage some kind of common platform as much as possible so you get the basic KPIs to understand the general behavior of the users. And then you have to do customization to really hone in on a specific target or a specific scenario to really take advantage of it. So I think, but over time, the company who is focusing on this will be able to have a very rich platform. But currently, there's nobody that's there yet. And I think the mix of customized and using platform is probably will be here for a while until the technology finally slows down a little bit.
Okay, thank you. You know?
Yeah, I also agree that about the build versus buy question. Right now, we in this early stage of this new kind of possibilities, we don't know what's the right answer yet. And those early pioneers who want to try new technologies have their own ideas. So they usually want to build their own implementation, their own scenarios. But there are many advantages when we converge those platform layer into one or two companies. In terms of battery consumption, or in terms of the reach, or the number of people who already have installed that corresponding app into their handsets. So I think right now and for a while, many companies will try different approaches on their own. But in time, the platform layer will converge into very few companies who have the technologies and resources to reach people, and there will be the higher layer used by each retailers, whether they are small or big.
Thank you. Does anyone have something to add?
The only thing I would add is something that Yano said earlier in the preparation of the panel, which was, maybe you want to elaborate a little, which I thought was really interesting. The idea that we need to find a technology that lets us scan the world, that makes it much easier for us to integrate data. I mentioned earlier the third wave of the internet will be the democratization of data. In order to make that data available, you need to ingest it somehow and categorize it. And I thought it was a very interesting idea that we're lacking that kind of thing for the physical world.
Yeah, when you look at how web happened, one of the key factors of the success of the web was the openness of HTML, the language for web, which made it possible for other companies to crawl your website and offer keyword-based searches or price comparison services, but that's not possible in the offline. So we currently do not have the technology to scan the offline and get useful information. We do have some technologies to recognize some particular objects, but in general we don't. So in order to have the digital overlay over physical world, how can we gather data about physical world easily or scalably? I think that is one of the fundamental questions. We don't know the answer yet. Maybe we will have a industry-wise standardized API, maybe inventory API open to or others, or we may have to develop some kind of small robots, drones, like the street view of Google Maps now. Some robots or some other machines can scan the offline world. Where are the hotspots? Where are to map the heat map of the physical world, or do they have the particular product in their inventory or not? Yeah, those kind of information could be very useful for creating new O2O service, and we are waiting for an answer.
Great. You know, you have a very great vision of the O2O services. Okay. Let me conclude our panel discussion. I don't think I have to summarize all the discussion. So thank you, panelists, for your great opinions. And thank you, audience, for your attention. Thank you.